Good morning there, Gamecock fans. JC Shurburtt here with coffee. Today is Tuesday, June 24th, the year of our Lord 2025. Good to be with you today and back after the journey to Columbia. I was talking to my wife and some friends. We aren't planning a vacation this summer, so that was sort of our vacation. Who goes to Columbia in June for vacation? I don't know. Crazy people like myself, but certainly had a good time at the third annual Wing Off. Special shout out to Cox by 90, Jeff. He organized the whole thing and did a tremendous job. And as someone who's organized these things and helped put them together the last couple of years, he blew me out of the water as far as just everything went off smoothly. Players were there, coaches were there, lots of you fans. If I met you and said hello and didn't get a chance to really talk to you, that I'm sorry. I meant to, but sometimes it's hard, and you see people you hadn't seen in a while. You get to talking to them and talk some business with some folks, and so shout out to everybody that was there. Shout out to Ryan and Hope and Faith Ann who run Cocky Hospitality. They did a tremendous job with Jeff putting it on. Got to spend some time with John Strickland, my buddy. I believe he's on the morning show today in his normal Tuesday spot. Got a chance to hang out with Ori, Cornbread Cowboy. That's always a treat. And meet his girlfriend. My wife got to meet all these people. It does me well to get back and have some FaceTime with some folks. Had a great dinner Friday night at Hall's Chop House. Shout out to everybody involved with that organization. It's all it's cracked up to be and more. Got a chance to hang out with Mike Yuva, who's a friend of mine and certainly is a guy in the media around Columbia that I've got a lot of respect and admiration for. He's a go-getter. Man, the Gamecock Bourbon was there. Got a chance to see him again. It just goes on and on and on. In addition to hanging out with Phil, the Mad Dog, in Greenville on Thursday, and got a chance to see our other friends as well. So nice trip. That's our vacation for the summer. I will not be going anywhere until Labor Day weekend for the game in Atlanta with Virginia Tech. And so it's back to the grind for me. Housekeeping notes as far as Chief goes and our live shows, our Inside the Gamecock shows. Well, I think finish out this week and then it's on hiatus. Those shows are on hiatus for 2 weeks. So summer schedule continues and we'll be back the Monday of SEC Media Days, which I think is the 11th. Maybe not. Maybe that's like the 13th of July. I'll update you, obviously, because we've got that going. Coffee will continue, though. Planning on having a show most mornings. Maybe not like July 4th, actually, the 4th of July. Maybe not Fridays. Maybe we'll skip Fridays or something, but we'll continue to have coffee pumped out since it was kind of, we've taken a few breaks here on this particular show lately, and it gives me something to do every morning, and it gives you a way to be updated on all things happening for the Gamecocks. There's commitments that take place too, like during that week we're off, so there'll be relevant information. And if there's not, we'll just kind of continue to dig in history, Gamecock history, the season coming up, team notes, all that good stuff. Oh, by the way, I forgot Ashley Chastain Woodard was at the wing eating contest too. They're able to raise some money for the softball program, which was awesome for the softball diamond club, dugout club. Very nice person. Got a chance to meet her husband, who was there too, the head coach, Coach Woodard from Charlotte. Mentioned that when they put Clemson out of the NCAA tournament, I thought that was a good moment for most Gamecocks, and certainly great meeting them as well. So there's the weekend, and there's the housekeeping notes as far as our programming here goes. I also want to remind you, in the heat of recruiting, thebigspur.com, I think 50% off a annual membership if you use the code the show 50. That's a special discount code for all of my listeners, all of our listeners out there. Phil and I will be along with the show later today from 12 to 2. Don't forget tonight as well on the Chief Sports app, Sports Talk with Phil Kornblut. And then at 8 o'clock tonight, we've got the late night Gamecock show. So, yeah, the morning announcements, that's it. So, there we go. On that, obviously, there's a big official visit weekend this past weekend. And, folks, the best way I can describe it is, everybody had a great visit. I know for a fact Desmond Green had a great visit. I know for a fact Darius Gray had a great visit. Samari Matthews had a great visit. All of them, for the most part, had a great visit. Marion Watkins. And I'll start with Watkins because I stress the most about him because I really, really like him as a player. And so it's like I was telling a friend of mine, because we're going back and forth about some of the bigger names. And, when you recruit like this and you recruit big names, it doesn't matter really who you are. You're going to get some and you're going to lose some. And you're going to lose some you don't expect to lose, and you're going to get some you don't expect to get. And that's the key, is an overall class. When you look at it, did you get your share? We're going to use that point a lot. Did you get your share? And it's easy to get disappointed as far as who you don't get, but pay attention to who you do get. And things usually work out. And then also in recruiting, it's, somebody on the Big Spur posted this morning when I was catching up. The idea is to do it over and over and over again. You don't ever get anywhere with just one recruiting class. Now, some recruiting classes help you more than others. I know I've been pretty direct at about the 2024 class. Although Wendell Gregory and Cam Pringle have left now, it's mostly intact. It was a small class, but you start looking at who was in it. Difference makers. Josiah Thompson, Dylan Stewart was in that. Michael Smith was in the 2024 class going into his second year. You sort of the list. Mazio Bennett was in the 2024 class. So that's a lot of quality. It was a smaller class. And then 2025, so far, so good. It's a little larger class. Then they got this class. And then, of course, 2027 forthcoming if players don't reclassify, more than they have, because Sequel Patterson's already part of 2026, and he's an elite in-state prospect. It sets up pretty well for the Gamecocks. But these are battles. And this time around, with how it sort of worked out, because you have Donovan Murph and Jordan Getteron, which would have been 2 top 5 prospects in the state already at Carolina, there's a lot of out-of-state prospects that are among the highly ranked, like a Matthews, like a Gray, all that good stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see who they end up with here in the coming weeks. There's already been a welcome home, and who knows who that is. I don't think so. Beamer tweeted it, and there was no state flag, which he normally uses for in-state guys. There's a picture of Dylan Thompson, who's a quarterback. So maybe he's being a little sneaky. Maybe it's Landon Duckworth. That would not surprise me, by the way. Landon Duckworth, by the way, he went to the Elite 11 and did very well. Top 10 prospect out there by those that rank. And I mentioned this, I believe, on the show. The thing about the Elite 11 is it's all passing. So his legs and his ability to scramble and run, which by all accounts are elite, that wasn't really, that's not really the Elite 11. It's passing and reading defenses and arm talent and drills and footwork and stuff like that. And he did really well out there. I've seen some quarterbacks who go on to have great college careers who in that setting were not nearly as impressive as they were once they got to college. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, but he's looking to be a good one, and there's a lot of upside there. And I think the Gamecocks are in good shape. I mean, he flew from the West Coast. I believe they still have that in Los Angeles, into Columbia for an unofficial visit, and stayed through Saturday afternoon this weekend of official visitors. So I like where the Gamecocks stand there with Duckworth. I mentioned Watkins earlier. Maybe I just don't want to believe it, but everybody else believes The Gamecocks are in great shape, and he could be committing soon. Northwestern guy. I've mentioned it before. Some of my buddies that are in the business that have nothing to do with the University of South Carolina think he could be the best prospect in the state when all is said and done. So that's a very important player. Just for me, it's like I just sweat it, because he's a guy that all the signs point toward Carolina, but there's always surprises in this business these days, and you just don't want any surprises with him. But there's been no signs. Other guys, they go on and take, Carolina's in good shape. JB Shabazz is a good point there, the tackle from North Carolina. And Kamari Blair as well. It looked like things were going really, really well with those two, and now maybe not so much after these visits. So, and then Kari Adams, the highly rated corner from PA. Think about this: Penn State brought him in. He gets predicted to Penn State. It's pointing towards Penn State, and then he goes to Notre Dame, falls in love, and now he committed to Notre Dame. So that kind of thing does happen these days. That's why you recruit, and this is the new January. And back when we used to do it all in January, there certainly were changes as kids took their official visits and kind of laid out all their options and weighed everything. So, but looking good for Watkins, looking good for Duckworth. Darius Gray, I had a really good visit. I mean, clearly, I think he likes Carolina quite a bit and can see himself there. With him, there's other factors, NIL. There's a lot of teams, Tennessee, LSU, Ohio State. I think Ohio State's in it for him. So there's a lot of, he's being pulled in a lot of directions. I feel better post-visit about him than I did pre-visit, but that could go a lot of different ways. And keep in mind too, he's an elite prospect, but he's an offensive guard. And I'm not trying to diminish that. You need, obviously, if you're Carolina, you need good the interior offensive linemen, and as many as you can get. Those guys get hurt. They don't develop. It's a crapshoot position. So what you want to do is get numbers, and you want as many good players within those numbers as possible. But would I put a crystal ball in for him for the Gamecocks now? No. But would I do the same for LSU, Tennessee, any of these other schools? No. If you put a gun to my head, I'd probably say Tennessee, because his agent, and they got agents now. There's been a lot of that organization's players go to Tennessee, but that would be like a blindfolded, we're going to shoot you if you don't make a prediction. That would be that under those circumstances when I say that, and by no means do I say he's a lock for the Vols or anything like that. Kamari Blair, Carolina had to survive the Tennessee visit. I think Tennessee made a huge push. He's an in-state player. You never know what their approach is with NIL and all that. And, Carolina was sitting very pretty with him, but he's also a kid that's kind of new to recruiting. And with those guys, sometimes having earlier visits doesn't work out in your favor, because it's like the shiny new toys. Like, I hadn't been anywhere. Nobody's really wanted me. So the first school, you're like, oh, yeah, I love these guys. And then you're like, well, Tennessee's the in-state school, that kind of thing. Clarksville's not necessarily a big Vols place. It's up on the border near Fort Campbell. A lot of Kentucky fans actually are up there. And that's kind of what Tennessee goes through sometimes with in-state recruiting. A big, long state, which I drove through, by the way. Got a good look at the back country near the Tennessee-North Carolina border on my trip, because part of I-40 is closed again. And really went through Marshall, North Carolina, Hot Springs, North Carolina. Those towns were devastated by Helene. Kind of sad, because they're beautiful little places. So thoughts and prayers to them for continued recovery. It looks like they're doing pretty well right now. And it's kind of a shame that they got flooded out, because you've got a lot of traffic now. I mean, we're going down this state road, and all the people are pouring out of Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge, wherever, going back to South Carolina or over to Charlotte or wherever, and cars for miles. Going the other way on Sunday, which was good. But you know, it's a shame that the towns are kind of wrecked still, and they're rebuilding because you could make some money that way. A lot of foot traffic that you normally do not have. But anyway, back to Blair. I just mentioned that because of Tennessee. He had a really good visit to Tennessee, so I don't know. Again, gun to my head, maybe the Vols, which, Carolina doesn't play them right now, but they're going to play them again. And they're a problem when they're good. Heck, they're a problem when they're not good. So you don't want to see Tennessee at get back to full strength. Um, especially on the offensive line because that's been a big key to why Heupel's offense has worked in different ways. Last year they were pretty good up front and they didn't throw it a whole lot and kind of ran the ball and played defense, and that was a big key. Now this coming year, Tennessee loses a lot up front, so we'll see how they do. But boy, Kamari Blair is such a good high upside guy, and they get him and Gray. That's obviously not going to be a positive development for the Gamecocks offensive line recruiting. And Blair, by the way, for those that that he did not, he Tennessee was this past weekend. I was just updating him. But back to Gray, that's where that stands. Samari Matthews is interesting because I got specific feedback on him. And the first thing that I got was, from South Carolina's perspective, there's all this NIL talk and a lot of crazy numbers being thrown around about Texas and Miami and things like that. And, Carolina's not under the impression that's, a factor. Now, could it really be a factor? And they just don't, sometimes the communication there isn't good. I'm not saying they're being hoodwinked or, fooled or anything like that, but there was a lot of confidence coming out of the visit for him. And Hale reported it. I got info when I was on the ground in Columbia about it. But, then the crystal ball from Wiltfong, the Fong bomb prediction on 3 for Texas. So you can't ignore that, right? Our Texas guy has a crystal ball in for him. The guy at Rivals has a Carolina crystal ball. So it's kind of shaping up, I think, Gamecocks Longhorns would the stronger, longer theory apply? Because Samari and the Gamecocks have had a long relationship. He had very good quotes afterward. And then he moved his commitment date up to July 11th. So I don't know, man. I don't know. Coming off the visit, you move I mean, what does that mean, Tex? I don't know. Maybe he just wants to shut it down, maybe not get it into the season and his high school team's practicing, all that good stuff. So I'm cautiously optimistic with him, but not as optimistic as I am with Watkins and Duckworth, with the caveat that I'm going to fret Watkins until he commits. Tilden Riley, the tight end from Orangeburg Prep. South Carolina staff is really high on him. They're high on all the tight ends. Now, Jamel House, the commitment from Newberry, they think he's one of the better tight ends in the country. And they like Tilden Riley's upside as well. Got some good intel on that guy. South Carolina Vanderbilt, keep in mind he's an academic kid. I don't know what Vandy's policy is as far as NIL for freshmen. I'm assuming they did spend some money when it came to the transfer portal this past year. Vanderbilt spent some money, had a winning season, so obviously they've got some support there. And they've got Eli Stowers, who's one of the best tight ends in America, for coming into this year, and they use him a lot in that offense. So if you're an academic kid, Vandy's an attractive place. So I think the threat is real there, but he's an in-state guy. University of South Carolina had a great visit. So I like the Gamecocks' chances there, just with the caveat that, hey, if you go to Vandy, that's fine. A coach once told me, though, if you lose one to Vandy, Duke, or Wake Forest, you probably don't want them anyway. I don't know about that because I think through the portal you could get some pretty good players from Vanderbilt these days. But so we'll see what happens there with Tilden Riley and all that. I love where South Carolina stands with Sequel Patterson, who is now a 2026 player from Indian Land. I love where they stand. He had a good official visit with the Gamecocks, and we'll see what happens with him as far as a public announcement. I think it'll probably be soon. He's got uh, he's got a lot of ability, folks. Goodness gracious, this guy is really, really good. Keep in mind he was the 18th ranked prospect in America for 2027. Now he's at like 189 per 24/7 Sports. Let's see what he is. Composite, it's even lower, 247. They may not have updated it yet. I don't know, but he took this is only official visit. I think he could shut it down, and I've got a crystal ball prediction in for him as well. So that's the type of guy you want. That's the type of guy I sweat. So on to Joshua Dobson, the corner who's fifth in the country from Catawba Ridge. Gamecocks are going to be in a dogfight for him, but they're doing pretty well early on. But Sequel had a really good visit, and I don't know that we'll be waiting too long for a commitment from him. Although maybe on into the season it lasts. I know that Amari Thomas, the running back, committed to Florida State. That may extend a while as far as the Gamecocks continuing to recruit him. Desmond Green, I think I mentioned him earlier. He's a 4-star per composite offensive guard from Timberland and St. Stephen. Yeah, this one's interesting. I think he had a really good visit, and there was a chance that visit didn't happen. But, again, these days there's a lot of factors. Georgia is kind of up in the air on him. They don't have a lot of interior offensive line spots. Carolina kind of iffy going into the visit. They did bring him in, though. Could Carolina pull an upset here and keep him home? Yes, but how far are they going to go? That's the thing with it nowadays, especially if there's an NIL demand. Keep in mind he is also a guard. Florida could be the destination, and almost a little bit by default. But we'll see what happens there. And he's one too. I got a chance to see him. He stopped by the wing eating contest. He's a big kid and lean for He's a lean looking 354. Now he had black on, so maybe not. I know when I wear black, it's slimming, right? But he's well put together. I don't, I look at him and I'm like, eyeball test wise, he passes it. I'd have to dig into the film a little bit to determine his true upside, but I don't know. Maybe they end up with him. Maybe with Blair kind of teetering a bit to Tennessee, and if they don't get Shabazz, maybe they circle back here and take Desmond Green and bump him up a little bit on the board. I'm speculating there, to be honest. Samorian Wingo, the receiver from St. Augustine, Florida, heading into the visit, South Carolina trailed Florida and Miami pretty significantly. The visit did close that gap. I still kind of have a hard time seeing him leaving the state at this point, but St. Aug is, I guess the Gators would be the home team here because St. Aug is close to Gainesville, obviously, but Miami's on down the road. I don't know. Miles wise, it's probably closer than Columbia. But Carolina got in there. They got a seat at the table. He's supposed to announce relatively soon, I believe, with regards to no scheduled announcement, but I don't think it's going to be that long. He's the number 156 player overall in the country, 22nd ranked wide receiver. Mike Fury does a really good job with these guys. But it's Mike Fury versus a blast from the past with the Gators, Billy Gonzalez, who was on Urban Meyer's first staff there at Florida and one of the better recruiters he had. So it's kind of a battle royale with the recruiters, if you will. Kevin Beard's recruiting him for Miami. We know what Miami's all about as far as recruiting goes. But I like where Carolina stands. I think there's a shot at an upset, but we who knows? I mean, it's tough to pull an in-state kid. are from Florida. Still, especially when they have two of the big three in their top three. Sometimes Florida kids they leave the state far more often than they used to. But when the home team is in the top, when there's two of the home teams in the top three, so most of the time it's hard to see them leaving for that out of state because that signifies an intent to stay in state and play for the Gators or Canes. But that was a shoot your shot and see what happens. And the Gamecock shot their shot, did all they could, and so we'll see sort of how all that plays out at the end of the day. So, of these guys, and they had Jazavian Currents in for his official visit. Obviously, he's become kind of a Pied Piper recruit for the Gamecocks, and I think he's helped tremendously with Matthews, and he's helped tremendously with Watkins up from his area. Maybe Sequel Patterson as well. Maybe he could help with Dobson. But it's he's been a very big part of this class. He and his dad both do a really good job of being committed ambassadors for the Gamecocks, while at the same time, and I got to give them credit for this because it doesn't always happen this way. He's made some visits. I mean, he went to Ohio State for a 7-on-7 and, toured the facilities and stuff. He's visited Florida State, but they've kept it respectful and handled it the right way. So I just want to give a shout out to Jay and just, I mean, they for a committed player, because you can get into this thing, and we always hear about Clemson, don't take any other visits, that kind of thing, or Dabo will drop you. That's not proven to be true. Deshaun Watson took a visit to Auburn. They didn't drop him back in the day, did they? And I'm not criticizing them for it. I think that's their recruiting speaks for itself, and their program speaks for itself, and it's just one way to handle it, right? But Carolina doesn't really have that hard and fast rule. But like what happened with Rodney Colton, the linebacker that was committed, he kept visiting other places and pumping them up and all that good stuff. And it comes across as kind of disrespectful. Wait, what are you doing here? Are you telling us a story? If you're going to decommit, and so that causes some things to get rocky. But Currents has visited places with his family, a lot of who's who in college football, and hadn't wavered, has been respectful to the other schools, been respectful to the school he's committed to, and so that's refreshing these days. They're handling it the right way, and that's fantastic. I think so. Shout out to him. And then I mentioned earlier Jamel House from Newberry. Jamel committed so early. He may be one some people kind of forget about. But talked to a contact over the weekend, says he's an absolute stud. Recently measured in at 6'3", 238, which is bigger than the 6'3", 212 he was listed at as a sophomore. And can run. Boy, you look at his film. He's something else. He's a really good in-state prospect, top 10 prospect in the state if I've ever seen. Had a great official visit. Loved his time there. And these guys that commit early just as important. It's not as fun to watch, but or to follow and track, but they count just as much. They're just as important with regards to that. And look, another guy that committed super early that you're going to need to keep an eye on this season, Brian Rowe from North Carolina, the wide receiver freshman at South Carolina, who's looking pretty good so far. And he's one of those consensus guys that you hear about from every single person that you talk to about the team. So I think that's a positive development. Blake Franks, by the way, just another little tidbit here on a current player, was at the offensive lineman redshirt freshman out of Greenville High. He was at the wing eating contest. He's looking good. He's looking really good. Leaner than he was out of high school. Big, looks like a power forward. That's how you want him to look. And so it's eyeball test. I didn't see him move around. He ate chicken wings. But looks good. He kind of looked the same as Desmond Green, probably a little bit better, obviously, because he's been in a college weight program, just from the eyeball test standpoint. Also got to see Oscar Attaway and his dad, and shout out to them at the wing eating contest. Oscar's a big time leader for this team. Obviously, he's an older player, And I was talking to them about the running backs, and they feel pretty good about all of them, including Oscar. So, keep in mind it's from one perspective, but they're very honest. Mr. Attaway is very, very honest about things, and I believe them that the running back room is going to be pretty good this year, and we'll see what happens. Don't count Oscar Attaway the third out as far as the running back room is concerned. No update on Faison, but I do think things are going to be pretty fine there. Sorry about that. My nose itches. Gosh, nose. Sinusy. It's warm here today. Very, very warm and humid. All right, so there you go. That's coffee for today. I just wanted to give you an official visit recap, if you will. Tell you what I know. Feel really good about some. Some I don't feel as good about, as good. And then some are I don't feel as good as I did. Some feel a little better. That's recruiting, ladies and gentlemen. And we appreciate everyone who cares about it. I still think it's going to be a heck of a class. People ask me all the time, where's it going to be ranked? It's impossible to tell. Just because a lot of that final team ranking, and now there's this discrepancy. Our formula at 24/7 is different than the On3 formula, though the same person kind of came up with designed both. So Carolina's not as high as they are on 3, and so that's but it's designed. Our formula is designed for it to all work out at the end, but so much depends on number one, who does everybody else get? Number two, where are they ranked in the final rankings? South Carolina wasn't tracking towards the top 20 class last year, really until the end when they flipped two or three guys, and then a lot of guys moved up in the final rankings and they finished in the top 20. So I don't see it being. I mean, if anything, it'll be a little higher than it normally is, but I don't expect it to be lower. And then keep in mind the 2024 class, the much ballyhooed 2024 class I'm always talking about, I don't think it finished very high because of the small number of players, maybe 16th in the country, which is high, but it's not, don't get it twisted. It's high, but it wasn't like the top 10 class like Spurrier had that one year in '07. That's only happened once, folks. So we'll see. All right. Don't forget, later today, the morning show, John Strickland on, I believe. I have not got confirmation for that. Phil and I will be along with the show. We got sports talk this afternoon with Phil Kornblut. They did a great job with Coastal Carolina baseball. Unfortunate what happened with the umpire and all that. And then the late night Gamecock show tonight before going on hiatus for the 4th with Matt and the pride of Hampton County, Alex Jones. All right, JC Shurburtt, Coffee, signing off. I'll at you soon.